Mayor Mayakar, and I'm so proud to serve as Deputy Mayor for Economic Development. And we have to start out, I have to say this as a musician, by thanking the Jazz Institute of Chicago. We had Brent Griffin Jr. on sax. Let's hear for him. Rainier Brooks on bass. And as a drummer, a shout out to Alejandro Salazar on drums. And thanks as well to World Business Chicago for sponsoring our refreshments this morning. Today is truly a momentous day. So 12 months to the date is when we first announced the very inaugural batch of community development grants. And this came because of a push by the mayor to make sure that we had new transformational tools to support community development in a way that would be befitting of what was, at the time, the first economic recovery plan published by any American city as to how we got out of COVID, and also to support initiatives like Invest Southwest, which will be a national model for redevelopment in disinvested communities. But in order to accomplish that transformation, we needed new tools. Historically, you would be only relying on tax increment financing or the Neighborhood Opportunity Fund, which are very important programs, but they weren't enough to accomplish the ambition of what we needed to rise to the occasion. And that's why the city, because of the mayor, floated the first economic bonds in the history of Chicago. And that's why we are all here today. It's because of leadership, and it's because of Mayor Lightfoot pushing the entire team to ensure that in 12 months, we've gotten out an unprecedented level of funding in economic grants. So to tell us more about that, I'd like to bring up the woman who made this all possible, and that is Mayor Lori Lightfoot.
Wow, that was a unexpected but very much appreciated greeting. I will get to my prepared remarks in a moment, but let me take this opportunity to say this. Public service must be about doing good everywhere, and especially in those spaces, on those blocks, and in those neighborhoods that haven't been seen by City Hall. And, you know, I get to stand here and take the accolades, but this is really about a team that has been so committed, heart and soul, to fundamentally transforming the relationship between the city government and you, the governed. It's about raising expectations and making sure that we never go back to the old way, where our neighborhoods were starved, where people and places that deserve to be seen and heard were ignored by the powerful, small, clouded few that dined on taxpayer dollars but gave back so little in return. It doesn't matter who's on the 5th floor. You don't need a permission slip to demand more from government, from the mayor, from the members of city council, from all elected officials. We still are living in a difficult time. We are still living in a time where we need people to stand up and be leaders and support the work that is going on in neighborhoods to transform the lives of not just this generation, but the next one and the next one. So my formal time as mayor is coming to an end. But you'll hear me say more about this next week. It is time for us, for you, to take the baton and run the next legs of the race all over the city, every neighborhood, every block, and get it done. I'm looking out and I see Juan Moreno, who made me cry probably about a year plus ago, because he said that this was the first administration and first mayor, not just who saw minority and women-owned businesses, but trusted you to lead. That is true, Juan. It was true then, it's true now. So let me go on, so I'll stop my preaching so we can get to the fun part, which is telling you who has won what. We are today announcing the biggest single round of economic development grants the city has ever awarded. And this doesn't just come because I have a vision and a commitment. It comes because we have an incredible team who is equally committed, who sweats the details every day. You know some of them. You heard initially from Samir Mayakar. You're going to hear from DPD Commissioner Maurice Cox. You're going to hear from Chief Sustainability Officer Angela Tovar. But know that there is a huge team across city government, particularly in the mayor's office, and in DPD, and in housing, and in DCASE, and other city departments who know that this is the work of a lifetime, that we must continue to bring life block by block, neighborhood by neighborhood, into our beloved city. So today we are celebrating a remarkable 133 finalists who are receiving economic development grants with a $54 million funding commitment. Many of those project leaders are here with us today, and I want to start by congratulating each and every one of you for your commitment to our city. These 133 projects will build community wealth, spur transit-oriented development, and make our city more sustainable and more resilient. Together, the finalists are revitalizing commercial corridors, creating new jobs, and building collective ownership in communities. These projects and developments are expected to create an incredible, get ready for it, $253 million in construction costs and opportunities alone. All of you here are here because we believe in the same things. We believe that every person from every walk of life and community in our city has value. And we believe that government has a responsibility to make investments in residents that address the harms of the past and the present and chart a better course for the future. We can only live those values and meet those responsibilities by acting with intention and purpose. And that is what this administration has been about from day one. And although this is the story we've been telling for 4 years, it hasn't always been heard. So let me say once more how we got to this day. Let me tell you about the work that has been my administration's blood, breath, and soul, so that our work may live on not just to the next administration and to the next, but for a generation to come. So what do we do in order to live our values, to make sure that we are operationalizing equity and inclusion? First, we put our money where our mouth is. Including today's announcement, we have committed over $250 million city dollars directly into our communities through development grants and the Community Development Grants Program. You can cheer for that. That initial $250 million investment has helped to unlock developments that will bring an estimated $750 million in economic impact throughout our city. And if you haven't seen the chart inside the book, take a look. That means that over $750 million is supporting small businesses, revitalizing commercial corridors, and ensuring that our communities are not just surviving, but thriving. To put that in a further context, today we are committing funding to places like the family-owned restaurant, Elbows Barbecue in North Lawndale. Congratulations, by the way. The $250 million grant they receive will empower a family of local business owners, activate the formerly vacant lot that the restaurant will stand on, and bring new food opportunities to the community. I know the elbow folks are in the house. Why don't you stand and take a bow? And over in Washington Park, we are awarding a $5 million grant to deeply rooted dance theater. A brand new cultural hub with 6 dance studios, a performance venue, and opportunities for the next generation of Black and brown dancers and dance educators to fulfill their passion. Deeply rooted, I know you're here. Please stand up and take a bow. On top of our economic development grants, more than $3.4 billion with a B billion went into over 1,300 projects focused on affordable housing, schools, parks, transit, and public infrastructure through TIF and funding over the last 4 years. $3.4 billion, folks. Yeah. These TIF-funded investments are ensuring that the neighborhood amenities surrounding the businesses that we are supporting enable these businesses to thrive. Businesses need customers. They need streetscapes. They need people to be able to live in the neighborhoods with affordable, transit-oriented development. So we are creating the ecosystem for these communities to be vibrant and thrive for years to come. Now, the list of investments and investment strategies goes on. These strategies include, of course, one of the things I'm most proud of over the last 4 years, Invest Southwest, which is revitalizing commercial corridors and disinvested communities with a $2.2 billion commitment and counting, almost evenly divided between city, private, and philanthropic dollars. And of course, the Chicago Recovery Plan, which is built on this work by guiding $1.2 billion in equity-based investments across our city, including the majority of today's awards. Suffice it to say, we put quite a bit of money directly into our communities over the years, and I'm just realizing I've forgotten 3 of the most important people that have made this happen, starting with our CFO, Jenny Bennett. And her sisters in finance, our budget director, Susie Park, and our controller, Reshma Soni. Those 3 women, along with the rest of our team, had figured out how it is that we can pay for this work. It's not just ARPA dollars, as many people thought. This is coming from corporate dollars. This is coming from our social impact bond that has been sold to investors all over this country and who are buying into the idea that our great city has something to say on the national stage about economic development and revitalization. So thank you, Jenny, Susie, and Reshma. And borrowing from our folks in the disability community, nothing for you without you. These investment strategies, we have made sure that communities are engaged and informed at the front end and throughout the process. We made applying for grants a very accessible process by applying universal application forms posted publicly online so that applicants don't have to apply in multiple places or repetitively enter information into forms. I'm not saying that we solved all problems, but we damn well tried. And let me just tell you, this is a highly competitive process, with the city receiving, for this round, over 670 applications for the programs that we're announcing today. We challenged ourselves to make investments that are clustered and evaluated through always an equitable lens. Equity is not the same as equality, and achieving economic and social justice in our communities takes targeted and thoughtful policy. By funding projects that reverse our history of disinvestment, we are also funding other priorities. As some examples, 32 of today's finalists are neighborhood projects that are mitigating the effects of climate change, representing our commitment to sustainability and environmental justice. Funding for equitable transit-oriented developments that bring the benefits of connectivity and walkable corridors represent 26 of today's finalists. Funding for community wealth-building initiatives that are doing economic development work through shared ownership models represent 27 of today's finalists. And furthermore, with today's announcement, we are funding pre-development planning grants, which we hope will spark new opportunities, taking the hopes and dreams that are discussed around kitchen tables by hardworking families and turning those ideas into the reality of catalytic, community-led change. Again, take a look at that project, that program, and you'll see these projects in all their splendor. You'll see a map filled with dots. These dots represent where we invested approximately $200 million in economic development grants just since last June. And you'll notice the dots are clustered together in commercial corridors throughout our city. That's intentional. And you can see clusters of investments occurring at 47th and Ashland, 43rd and Cottage Grove, Uptown, Chicago Avenue in Austin, and so many other places across our city. Each dot tells its own story. But in all, the unifying thread is uplifting and strengthening our communities. No matter what the future holds for our city, this administration, all of us, have made investments that will pay dividends in the manifestations of safer, vibrant, stronger communities for years to come. And we are doing everything we can to make sure that the pipeline of projects comes into reality. Now, we need all of you to do your part as well. We make the awards today. You'll get award letters that come in the coming days that ask you for certain information. Get back to us as quickly as you can so we get those dollars locked in to that budget book so they are committed for you and for your ideas and your dreams to become reality. Today's announcement alone represents 133 groups that are changing their communities for the better with $54 million commitment that will unlock, as I said before, more than $253 million for our communities. Today is a celebration, as this standing room only crowd can attest. And on top of the others through the years, promises to our future in this city is always going to be bright because of each and every one of you. I look out in this audience and I see many people that I know, but I also see a lot that I don't. That's a good thing. We want to bring as many people as possible into this community of wealth building, into this community of believers in the greatness of our city and in our neighborhoods and our blocks, and importantly, in our people. So congratulations to each and every one of you. It's a blessing to be among you. And now it's my honor to call up Commissioner Maurice Cox, who will do the first levels of unveils. Come on up.
Oh my God. You have no idea how beautiful this room is, so I'm going to take a moment to capture this. This is amazing. Deputy Mayor Samir Mayakar, the hardest working deputy mayor Chicago has ever seen. Our Sustainability Commissioner Tovar, our distinguished older people who are here with us, and to Mayor Lightfoot. As this administration's time winds down, I think it's utterly amazing to see its legacy right here in this room. These are the community builders. These are going to be the innovators that will be exploring new models for land and business development well into the 21st century. And on their behalf, Mayor, we all thank you. So there's an incredible energy in this room, and I'm thrilled to be here with so many enthusiastic Chicagoans for what is by far my favorite moment in my work as planning commissioner, where I get to announce the biggest collection of Chicago Recovery Plan grants in 5 rounds of this program. This is the occasion where we get to answer the question, who's going to build our communities? Who's going to build our communities? And for a lot of cities, and for a long time here in Chicago, the answer would be, well, someone else is going to build. So the so-called professional developers, but folks who often don't necessarily look like the community, they don't live in the community, and they don't love the community the way you do. So this is a different strategy. So I think under Mayor Lightfoot, it's become very, very clear. What do they say? Nothing about us without us is what? For us. Nothing about us without us is for us. And that's why the answer to the developer question is sitting here right in this room. And I think you all deserve an amazing round of applause for yourself. So these grants are really investments in you, people with the vision, the drive, and the love of their neighborhoods who will make huge differences in how they develop. So as finalists, you should know that you're more than a sum of 133 points on a map. I believe your projects are going to be like light beams that are going to shine so bright to illuminate this entire city, to make it more vibrant, more resilient, and yes, more equitable. So my job today is to introduce a group of inspired people who will be undertaking some of the largest Chicago Recovery Plan grant projects as they move forward, as well as introduce several of our first ever community wealth building initiatives that are supporting cooperative improvements across Chicago. I'll be announcing 40 finalists in small groups, and when I'm done with each group, I'd like all of the people who are named to stand up, accept our admiration for your vision, and take a well-deserved bow. So I've got a pretty long list here, so I hope you're ready. Are you ready? Yeah. Awesome. Let's begin with a trio of creative organizations that are expanding neighborhood access to arts and cultural programming. These development grants are amongst the largest available through CRP. The first one is in Washington Park, and the grant goes to Deeply Rooted Dance Theater. You can stand up. Many of you may not know, they've been rooted in Chicago since 1996. And with this grant, they will create an international hub for contemporary dance education on South State Street. They will be receiving a $5 million grant. The next finalist is in Douglas, where the Southside Community Arts Center will renovate their landmark building on South Michigan and add a modern addition for expanded cultural programming. Could they stand up? They are the arts organization on the cover of your program. They will be receiving a $3.3 million grant. And the third finalist is in Westtown, where Equity Arts will be creating a new home for multiple arts organizations on historic Milwaukee Avenue. Equity Arts will be receiving a $5 million grant. Could you stand up? Congratulations. So, those are the community builders through the arts. Next up are several commercial redevelopment projects that will create retail and incubator spaces for our local entrepreneurs. The first goes to Exchange Grand Crossing, which will create a tech-related workforce development center in Greater Grand Crossing. They will be receiving a $5 million grant. Can you stand up? Congratulations. Next is 2309 Place in South Shore, which will be creating retail space for a barbershop, an apparel store, and a pop-up restaurant on 71st Street. They will be receiving a $2 million grant. Can you stand up and be recognized? Congratulations. Next is Westside Laundry Cooperative, which will use their grant to open an employee-owned healthcare laundry in North Lawndale. They will be receiving a $2 million grant. Can you stand up and be recognized? Next is the Brighton Park Neighborhood Network, which will use their grant to create a new human-centered service center on the southwest side. They will be receiving a $2 million grant. Can you stand up and be recognized? Thank you. And finally, Soul and Smoke, which is turning its Avondale pop-up into a permanent restaurant. They will be receiving a $500,000 grant. Can you stand up and be recognized? All of these grant finalists, can you please stand up and let's hear it from them one more time. These are Chicago's. So these are Chicago's community builders through commercial development. Let's move on to our community wealth building categories. So these are a new grant portfolio. These are pre-development planning grants that will help grantees build their capacity, refine their business plans for locally driven, democratic, and shared ownership opportunities throughout Chicago. These are up to $150,000 each. So let's start with workers' cooperatives, a category that is partially inspired by the famed Shy Fresh Kitchen, which recently moved from a shared kitchen space at the Hatchery to a permanent location in Greater Grand Crossing, where it's a model now for other cooperative enterprises. They deserve a hand. For the sake of time, I'm going to run through these pretty quickly. The first is Sankofa Village Community Grocer, which is creating a worker-owned food cooperative in West Garfield Park. Are you in the house? Awesome. Stand up. Yes. Next is Cornerstone Co-op, which is creating a store for the planned National Public Housing Museum, which will be housed in the last former Jane Addams home on the near west side. Can you stand up? Great. Next is the Business Services Collective, which is helping minority construction firms with estimating, accounting, and other technical services. Are you here? Can you stand up? Thank you. And next is the New Era Expansion, an employee-owned window manufacturer that's expanding into a larger space with enhanced workforce development opportunities. Thank you. And next is the Art Center Co-op, which is building an alternative art center and community space in West Inglewood. Are you in the house? Yes. Next up is the Revolution Institute, a worker cooperative project that will train and certify young adults for construction jobs. Are you here? So good. Thank you. Next is the Esprit de Corps Workers Co-op that is reopening a shuttered bodega in Roseland. Are you here? Congratulations. The next is in South Lawndale, where Healing for Change Co-op is creating a space for alternative wellness strategies for displaced and oppressed immigrants. Can you stand up and be recognized? And finally, our last worker cooperative is HAS, Studios and Maker Spaces, which is creating a multi-use artist complex in Pilsen. Will you stand up? Great. All right. Will all the grant finalists please stand? These are Chicago's pioneering community wealth builders through workers' cooperatives. Congratulations. Let's give them a round. Okay, let's move on to the housing cooperatives, exploring a variety of collective ownership models. Each finalist will use these grants to explore the creation of affordable and special needs homes in the city. These are pre-development planning grants. The grants go up to $150,000 each. First is C40 Garfield Park, which is finalizing plans for an all-affordable housing project on 5th and Kedzie in Garfield Park. Can you stand up? Awesome. Congratulations. Next is the Cooperativa de la Velita, which is working on plans for a scattered site housing cooperative in South Lawndale. Will you stand up and be recognized? Next up is from the Shy Fresh Kitchen folks. It's Jump Start Housing Cooperative, which is refining plans for housing former incarcerated individuals searching for a location in Bronzeville. Can you stand up and be recognized? Next is Artists Design the Future, which is developing plans for artist housing that includes on-site workshop spaces. Artists Design the Future, can you stand up? And next is Pilsen Housing Cooperative, which is advancing plans for a pair of cooperative housing facilities in the Lower West Side, the Pilsen Housing Cooperative. Stand up. Excellent. And finally, we have the Chicago Family Housing Community, which is working to acquire property for a second housing cooperative in Humboldt Park. Can you stand up and be recognized? So can all of the housing cooperative finalists, can you please stand up? These are the innovators exploring new models. Congratulations. Okay, just two more categories to go, both involving community-based organizations. The first is our Community Land Trust category for people that are providing public access to shared housing, workforce resources, and community assets. Each finalist is receiving a grant up to $150,000. Again, finalists, please stand after I've announced the winners. The first is the Liberation Lab, which is refining plans for a multicultural community space that includes shared offices, a health clinic, classrooms, a small museum, and other amenities. The Liberation Lab. Are you here? Excellent, congratulations. The next is Turning Red Lines Green, which is creating shared kitchen spaces for use by neighborhood street vendors. Can you rise and be recognized? Next is the Dovey Truman Affordable Housing Trust, which is working toward the purchase of multiple uptown buildings for low-income tenants. Congratulations. And next up is the Sustainable Square Mile, which will be acquiring vacant land for community gardens, heritage tourism sites, and affordable housing. Are you in the house? Naomi is in the house. Congratulations. The next is Here to Stay, CLT, which will be using its grant to subsidize the acquisition and rehab of apartment buildings for low-income tenants. Can you stand up and be recognized? And last is the Riverdale Community Land Trust, which is acquiring land for community purposes near the planned Red Line extension and along the Little Calumet River. Can you stand up and be recognized? Can all of the grantees from this category stand up? Because stand up, those of the land trusts. These folks are truly the innovators because they're exploring new models of land ownership in the 21st century. So the last category that I'll be announcing involves the Community Investment Vehicles, or CIVs, which are neighborhood collaboratives that pool resources to buy and repurpose underutilized properties and assets. So each one of these will be leveraging their grant to improve equity participation. That means ownership by minority individuals and organizations throughout the South and West Side, which will result in improved financial literacy and investment knowledge for ordinary residents, among other goals. So this is an amazing new tool we have. And again, the finalists, if you can stand after you've been called. They include the Washington Park Community Investment Vehicle. Please stand. The We the People Community Investment Vehicle. Please stand. The Inglewood Community Investment Vehicle. Please stand. And the K Community Investment Vehicle. Please stand. So please, can you give all of these Chicagoans an amazing round of applause? So, as I said, this is an inspiring group of community builders with inspiring projects. And you should know that we in DPD and in the mayor's office will be with you every step of the way as your projects move from idea to completion. And there are so many DPDers in the House, I can barely name them all. So could all of DPD please stand up and see who these people are who have made this work possible? Just wave your hands, wave your hands. So you will get to know them well. It is now my honor and privilege to share the dais and introduce our Deputy Mayor, Samir Mayarkar.
I'm back. So I have the distinct pleasure of announcing our next two grant categories, and these are important to me, and it's actually timely. I came here after being at a real estate panel this morning, and the topic was, what's the future of the real estate market? And interestingly, the people on that panel only focused on measuring the success of real estate in Chicago by how many cranes there are downtown. And, you know, I'll just say that room looked a little different than this room. But, you know, what's important about this category is how about we get some cranes up on the south and the west side? How about we fill that vacant land? How about we rehab vacant buildings? So it's my pleasure to start with the ETOD, Equitable Transit Oriented Development Planning Grants. So what I'm going to do, this is a longer list than Maurice had. So I'm going to name each of the teams. Please stand up and let's hold our applause till the end of each category. So for our ETOD planning grants, and please stand when I call your team up, 121 West Pullman Lofts, the Melody Senior Residence and Community Center, Auburn Gresham Local Mobility Hub, St. Leonard's Campus Reimagined, Click Development, you guys stand up, the K, the Workshop in Albany Park, Team Pioneros Mixed Use Development, hey Juan, Grace Space, Bickerdike Redevelopment Corporation, Safe Harbor for Equitable Development, the Mayfair Arts Center, Ignatian Mission Center, Definition Theater, 548 Energy Institute, Abrams Intergenerational Village, Sunshine Community Center, VOB Fielding Apartments, Click Development, Wild Onion Market, Midwest Apartments, Food Matters, Bridget's Bodega, 272 North California, the Avenue Apartments, Little Angels Learning Center, and Starling. Let's give them a round of applause. Congratulations. Okay, you can all be seated. Our next category is for block level grants. So these are the grants that are truly bringing development to blocks, and they're up to $250,000. So our block level development grants, again, please stand when I call your team out and stay standing. 345 Outdoor Art Museum, 87th Street Community Space, 8800 Mackinac Mixed Use Development, 8857 South State Street, Art Colony Retail Business Incubator, De Colores Patio and Garden, El Patio Catedral, 4-Star Mushrooms, HPNC Community Space Expansion, Joshua Generation Daycare, Junior Chef's Kitchen, Justice of the Pies, hey Maya Camille, Little Space Daycare, Little Village Art and Nature Center, Murray Market and Co-work Space, MP General Contractors, Okpara House, Orkanoy, PG6 Sports Bar, Playbound, Soul City, The Social Network, Uprising Theater Project, Windy City Fadez, 1719 Project, Act Yoga, Anamalai Kanagaraju, Bell Tax Accountants and Advisors, Chicago Eats, Clark Catering, Cleo's Southern Cuisine, Dave's Market, Digifay Studio, Elbows Barbecue, Experience Candle Bar, Food Hero Culinary School, Foster Kennels, Karaoke on the Avenue, Project Joyce, and the Juice Bar Project. Let's give them a round of applause. All right, and for our last round of awards, I'd like to call up my partner here, which is Angela Tovar, our amazing Chief Sustainability Officer.
Wow, it's so wonderful to see so many smiling faces. And, you know, I spent so much time in the environmental justice movement space before I became the Chief Sustainability Officer. And there's one thing that we have told people time and time again, is that community leaders are fully aware of their vision for community, and with the right resources and the right support, we can realize that vision. So it's so exciting to be here with you all today and to support you all in realizing that vision for your communities. I want to begin by thanking Mayor Lightfoot and Deputy Mayor Samir Mayakar, Commissioner Cox, our honorable alders that have joined us today, as well as the Office of Climate and Environmental Equity and the Department of Planning and Development. I'm thrilled to be here with you to set a new precedent for the city. Today, we, as the City of Chicago, for the first time, will be providing millions of grant funding to nonprofit organizations and small businesses to develop new climate solutions citywide through the Climate Infrastructure Grant Program. It's very exciting, first time. These investments will lay out a vision that we laid out in our 2022 Climate Action Plan, a plan to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions 62% by 2040, and a roadmap for a just and equitable green economy for the City of Chicago. A green economy for Chicago that recognizes the urgency of mitigating the climate crisis while crafting solutions to ensure that Black, brown, and low-income communities that are impacted first and worst by climate change are not left behind. A green economy for Chicago that minimizes our reliance on fossil fuels, grows our green jobs sector, invests in clean energy infrastructure, and innovative solutions that prioritize our communities, our people, and our planet. A green economy for Chicago that sets out to drastically reduce our greenhouse gas emissions while driving benefits like improved air quality, community resiliency, wealth building, utility cost savings, and improved mobility. We're thrilled to provide funding to realize this vision for many organizations and small businesses who have stepped forward to take meaningful actions that serve our city today and for future generations ahead. And with that, I'd like to announce our 31 awardees. I'm going to announce them by category, and then I'll invite them to stand up, and then we'll move on to the next category. So beginning first with renewable energy and energy efficiency projects. These are folks that are taking steps to advance renewable energy generation solutions and to decarbonize or lower their energy consumption in their buildings. So I'll begin first with Church of Atonement. If you're here, please stand up. Ebenezer Missionary Baptist Church. Association House of Chicago. Plant Chicago. Family Matters. Grace United Methodist Church. Hartselle Memorial United Methodist Church. Holy Family Lutheran Church. Levitt Laundry LLC. REMA Community Development Corporation. Congratulations. St. Leonard's Ministries. And Via Chicago. And if you all want to stand up for a round of applause. And for the next category, I'll be announcing folks that are taking action by advancing electric vehicles, purchasing electric vehicles, and installing and charging infrastructure. So beginning first with Back of the Yards Neighborhood Council, who will be advancing an electric senior shuttle bus, which is very exciting. Build Inc., Little Brothers Friends of the Elderly, Esperanza Community Services, Jitney EV, Marillac St. Vincent Family Services, Montoya Electric, Rebuilding Exchange, Safer Foundation, St. Anthony Hospital, United in Faith Lutheran Church, Volunteers of America of Illinois. And if you all want to stand up briefly. And the final awardees are those who are implementing green infrastructure projects in their neighborhood to beautify our communities, to address stormwater and flooding, and to advance nature-based solutions. And they are Blacks in Green, Neighbor Space for the Calumet River Garden Gateway, Young Men's Educational Network, the Garfield Park Community Council, the National Museum of Mexican Art, the Ma'afa Center for Arts and Activism, the Trinity United Church of Christ with the Endaleo Institute. And last but not least, the Urban Growers Collective. If you all can stand up. Okay. And I'll invite all the awardees to stand up one more time, and if you all can join me in one more round of applause. And with that, I will turn it over to one of our extraordinary climate leaders here in the city of Chicago, Jonathan Pereira.
Thank you all. This is an incredible honor. This is the closest a nonprofit leader gets to winning an Oscar. And what's wonderful is that we all won today, so thank you. Plant Chicago's mission, we're a small nonprofit on the southwest side in the Back of the Yards neighborhood. Our mission is to cultivate local circular economies. We envision a paradigm shift in production, consumption, and waste driven at the local level, generating equity and economic opportunity for all residents. In short, our global economy operates off some dangerous assumptions that there are infinite resources to consume, and our economy assumes that materials and often people are disposable. Local circular economies create jobs. Composting organic materials create more jobs than hauling materials to landfills. By repairing equipment instead of landfilling, we can support local jobs in neighborhoods like Back of the Yards. And by sourcing locally and sustainably grown food, we're supporting local farmers. Plant Chicago operates out of a former firehouse on the southwest side, which I find ironic as we are responding to a very different type of emergency, climate change and overconsumption of resources. Our mission and vision drives us to install the first publicly available EV charging station on the southwest side of Chicago, to provide free food scrap drop-off for our neighbors so that materials get composted, not landfilled. We link match, offer sliding scale options for the purchase of locally produced food. Last year we provided over $21,000 in healthy food incentives. Hands-on STEM education programs for school groups across the city, regardless of their ability to pay. Support for small businesses that are working to transition to circular economies. and host regular markets generating tens of thousands of dollars for entrepreneurs and other small businesses. The investment from the Climate Infrastructure Fund will allow Plant Chicago to meet our ambitious goal to decarbonize our building by replacing gas-fired space heaters with all-electric air source heat pumps and energy recovery events. When complete, our building will be all-electric, producing renewable energy and providing publicly available electric vehicle charging. We'll also have our indoor victory garden, a shared-use indoor farm. It's a low-risk option for entrepreneurs and Chicago residents to experiment with growing their own food year-round. Now, when the mayor released the Climate Action Plan just about a year ago, and later in the year the Building Decarb Plan, I mentioned that Chicago was no stranger to plans. Everybody wants to make a plan. And I related one of my hopes that these plans would not sit on a shelf, but instead collect only coffee stains, pen marks, and continued updates. Well, today, with the announcement of the investments in CIF and many more, I think we can say that the plans are indeed getting a few coffee stains on them. And investments like these demonstrate tangible action to ensure that the city is working to an equitable transition to the decarbonization of buildings. My hope now is that today is not the only day that something like this happens, that the city will continue to make bold investments in our future. And I just want to thank, on behalf of all the other nonprofits and small businesses here, thank you for your investment. Thank you to the mayor's team as well. And thank you to all of you in the audience that inspire me. With that, I'm going to give the floor, or the podium, over to Tanya Trice, the Executive Director of the South Shore Chamber of Commerce.
Good morning, everyone. I am so grateful and honored to be here with you this morning. A few years ago, the South Shore Chamber of Commerce decided to expand its services to broader community-wide economic development issues. So we formed a Community Development Corporation. Our mission is to reactivate neglected and underutilized properties in our community and reduce the vacancy rate along our commercial corridors. Our project, which is presented here today, 2309 Place, is our first development project as a CDC. This 6,000 square foot building will be home to the Chamber of Commerce and the CDC. We will also create a small business center for our local business owners, which some of you are here today as awardees. And we will also create a pop-up kitchen and other retail businesses within the building. This project will also allow us to have greater visibility along the 71st Street corridor. I am also very grateful that I found out just this morning that the building is eligible for a Chicago landmark designation. So that's like the cherry on top of our project. And thanks to programs like the Chicago Recovery Grant and Neighborhood Opportunity Fund, momentum is really high on 71st Street right now. Currently, there are 8 resident-led development projects along 71st Street alone, which totals over $6 million in investment. Thanks. We're also here this morning as a double awardee. With the support of our partners at Community-Chicago, we have formed a community investment vehicle called We the People. We the People is a shared ownership model designed to give local residents the opportunity to invest in community assets, regardless of their income levels. This program will come with robust financial literacy, and it will be 100% designed, controlled, and owned by residents in the South Shore community. This work, thank you. This work could not be possible without programs like the Chicago Recovery Grant and Neighborhood Opportunity Fund, the Community Wealth Building Initiative, and we thank you from the bottom of our hearts in the South Shore community. Whenever I am asked to speak publicly, I like to share this one statistic because it's staggering, and I think it also puts into perspective the need for programs like this. Within the South Shore community alone, we lose over $200 million annually to revenue leakage for goods and services. And South Shore is only 2.5 miles wide. If our residents have $200 million to spend outside of the community annually, we have the money to spend within the South Shore community. And programs like this help to create that circular economy that every thriving community in Chicago needs. So we are very grateful again. We hope the momentum continues in the South Shore community, and I want to thank Mayor Lightfoot, Deputy Mayor Samir Meyerker, Commissioner Cox. Whenever we called, you answered, and whenever we asked, you delivered. So we thank you from the bottom of our heart in the South Shore community.
And now it's time for some pictures. So here's what we're going to do. The first thing I'd like to do is just, if you work for the city, could you please raise your hand? Because these are the folks that made today possible. All over here. Thank you. Thank you so much to each and every member of our staff who've put in the hard work. So you might have noticed that your name tags are color-coded, and nothing here is a coincidence. So we're gonna go through 6 groups of pictures here with the mayor. And what I'm gonna ask is that I'm gonna bring the first group up, which is the group with the green name tags, if you could come up here. And then one of my colleagues will MC. After you get your picture, we'll move you out to the atrium and you can chat with everyone. But while you're in here, please be as quiet as you can and be seated, just so that we can do this in somewhat of a orderly fashion. But congratulations, everyone. Green group, please come up to the stage for a picture.
If folks wouldn't mind making their way up to the stage. Doing it Yes, up on stage, Josh. Josh, do you want a microphone to direct? You don't need it. I'm gonna get, okay. I just didn't know.
Now I